Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Meltdown Abroad.
If you feel like you haven't had any time to yourself lately, this episode is for you. We're talking about how to find small moments in busy family life abroad, and also how building your village helps out a lot.
Let's get into it.
All right. Hey Chanel.
Hey Tara, it's nice to see you again.
It's nice to see you too.
Have we had any meltdowns this week?
Okay, so it's not exactly a meltdown, but it's a funny sort of language malfunction, which happens all the time, actually. But I like having a little bacon sometimes for breakfast in the morning with my kids. And when you go to get it like at a butcher, it doesn't have preservatives and all that other stuff. So we go sometimes and get it at the Via Company downstairs. So we go, and we order bacon in German, like the normal way, except I forgot that you have to say that you want it sliced. That's not something that's implied. So because it's not implied, we open up the groceries and things when we come home, and there's just this massive mound of pork. It was not sliced bacon. And so then we had the great fun of learning how to slice bacon yourself, something I would never have done in America.
Did you use a knife to just cut it thinly, or did you have to have a slicer?
Yeah, we actually just used a knife. Okay. And it wasn't quite as bad as I thought, but it definitely was thick cut bacon, which is not.
This is too funny.
Yeah, so that was a very funny, something that definitely wouldn't occur. I didn't have a meltdown, it just made me laugh. Yeah. But it was certainly an expat only experience.
Yeah, no, I like that. Oh my god. Well, now I know if I want to get bacon, I have to tell them to slice it.
You have to tell them to slice it.
Yeah. It's funny, a lot of things are just not implied in this country specifically.
Well, it's so funny because American culture, there are so many things that actually are not said that are implied. It probably would be really hard for someone who doesn't know that. Mm-hmm. And then here, it is exactly as you asked.
Yeah.
So you didn't ask for it sliced, it's not sliced. Exactly. If you specifically said it's sliced, it will be sliced. And it's quite direct.
It is.
And if you forget a part, then you end up with a really big mound of pork instead of bacon.
Well, now you can think of a different meal. Can you make other things with the bacon? Anyway.
You can make a great carbonara, slice that stuff up and
dice that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good thought. Okay.
Well, it doesn't quite relate to the topic today. But we can get to it. So this week we're talking about just how to find time for yourself and, especially when you've just moved abroad and you don't quite have your village and you have your family and it's either you doing it by yourself or you and your partner doing it by yourself, still trying to carve a little time out for yourself, for some me time, for some partner time.
Well, how did that go for you? So when you first got here and you're still working in the US and you were doing so many things trying to adjust, were there certain things that you did to carve out time for yourself that helped you?
Definitely. I've talked about before in the past, like just every time I move, one of my things is to try and establish a routine that I've done from back home and see if I can do that in the country that I'm at. So there's a bit of trying to go to the cafes. I switched it up a little bit. I didn't need to go to dinner because I have dinner with my person. Yeah. But I would go to the cafes and just try to do some work there, change the setting. A lot of my work was online. I think for me, one of the things that I try to do is, for instance, if I was taking the train, I would do work on the train because, like I said, a lot of my work was online.
Yeah.
So I would be working while on the train, and I was like, this doesn't feel like I'm always stressed out. I'm always focused on something. I go to the park, I'm working. I go to the cafe, I'm working. And I go on the train, I'm working. So maybe if I'm deliberate and I just say, I'm going to listen to a podcast, that's me time. And it just takes me away from any stressors.
Yeah. I think that's really good because we often go through the day where every transition of the day is checking an email, looking at something, trying to get something else done, rather than it actually being a moment to walk to the train or a moment to sit on the bus and by doing that, every single moment is about being productive, which is tiring. Exactly. And so then if you feel really burned out by the end of the day, there just hasn't actually been a lot of space. Mm-hmm. And it's so natural where it's like, oh, great, I'm on the train. I'll check my emails or it's natural to do. And you look around and everyone else is as well. So you have that kind of, oh, I should be doing that as well. But then you don't get rest in between the things that you're doing.
And even if it's not work related, it's like planning dinner for the night or trying to do something with my partner and I, or just always thinking of what's on the to-do list.
Yeah.
And I felt like I wasn't getting a break. But one thing actually that when I was able to start driving here, what I started doing is just turning the music off in the car and just driving in complete silence. And even to this day I do it, and I always think that people think like a weirdo is in here because the radio's always off, the shared car guys. Yeah. So yeah, that's one of my things. Like I just kind of take it in. So I'm either looking at the sky, like focusing on what's around me as I'm driving, and just trying to clear my mind that way.
I think it's great because we can overcomplicate what it means to have time for yourself, what it means to rest or recover. And I think sometimes when people are talking about taking care of themselves, they think of super extra lovely extravagant things that going to get a massage or going to a spa or those kinds of things, and those things are nice, I like them all, but they're not actually what helps you day to day to feel recovered, to feel like you had a minute to yourself.
It's not realistic, especially if you have kids.
Yeah, exactly. It's not, there's no time to do that regularly. And so then it's, sometimes it's more about creating a little bit of space where you decide what you're doing, or where you've at least deliberately decided not to be working through every transition, so that 10-minute walk to the train, that 10-minute bike ride to go pick up your child, that whatever it is, that moment can be yours. And instead of belonging to work that sent you that note or some other to do, I find that helps me more than anything. For me, in the very beginning, when I first moved, I think it was actually hard to do this because there were so many to-dos to set things up. It was like my free time, because I worked more quickly than I had intended. I really wanted a little bit more time, and sort of the situation ended up where I was working more quickly, and I really didn't have any adjustment time without that piece. So because it was busier, I felt like there was so much that I needed to do to figure out doctors and schools and all of those things. But a few months in, when I could catch my breath a little bit, I even just started waking up a few minutes earlier than I did before, which oddly was still very painful to start doing. But once you do it, then it's amazing. I was like, this is so great. I can actually just have 10-15 minutes to myself before anyone's asking me to do anything else for them. And it sets the day up so that I feel like I've attended to myself first, and I'm so much calmer when that happens. So that was a really useful shift. I said that was a big one. I also try to get out and actually walk a little bit in between things. So if I have a break in between meetings, instead of just sitting at my desk and then continuing to maybe email or do other things, instead of sitting at my desk, I might, just walk 2 blocks and back. It truly doesn't take very much time, but it's still, particularly if I don't bring my phone or if I don't use my phone, then I feel like I'm getting a little reset time. One thing that I've also done that sounds silly, but if you like just having quiet, that I would get off the train one stop before I needed to be there and walk the rest. So I would just have a little bit of extra time to myself, but still moving in the direction of getting there. So that actually was helpful for me. Not in the winter when it's terrible, but when it's lovely out and you can get a little bit of sun and just walk for a few extra minutes, that actually was really helpful too.
That's what I do to get my 10K steps in.
There you go. Look, it's it serves multiple purposes, right?
But
it helps a lot.
No, I get it. That's something that I often tell the families that I work with. I'm like, you don't need to go to the spa, or I'm not telling you to take up a new mindful hobby. Like you don't need to go gardening now to feel like you're catching a break. You know, go in the bathroom, close the door, and just like take that extra 5 minutes. You went to pee, you know what? Sit on the toilet for another 5 minutes and just breathe and just take it out. The kids are fine. You can hear them even if they're banging on the door.
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, let's be honest. They're coming in anyway if they want. So if they need you, they will let you know. So it's okay. Like that's it. Even having like a longer shower, having like for me, doing anything that I could possibly be doing and doing it more slowly.
Yes.
And doing it without trying to also achieve something else. That calms me down more than anything else. It's really intense. I mean, we're constantly doing a million things. You're thinking about 400 things your kids need, what clothes they've grown out of, what they need next, what next doctor appointment to do, when you need to set up a teacher conference. All of these things are going on constantly, let alone the things, the laundry, the food, the cooking, the everything. And just giving yourself a few minutes to do only one thing. It really calms you down. Yeah. It's strange how helpful it is.
I told so I've always been like, one of my go-tos is after my shower, my favorite thing to do is like take time to moisturize myself. And so it was something that I suggested to a mom a few years back, and she's like, well, that's impossible. Like my kid won't give me time to moisturize. So I was like, have them do it.
Yeah, they can do it too. They
like,
can have their own.
No, but I said have them moisturize you.
Like they could just for sure
start moisturizing your feet, and like to this day, that's like a thing that they do together.
That's cute.
Now the kiddo is moisturizing themselves, but like after a shower, he will just also get undressed and just start moisturizing. And she's like, it's the only time that he actually slows down and he likes it. And I'm like, you know, that's their ritual now. So she's like, I actually get. Sometimes we talk and sometimes we just sit in silence and he plays with the lotion, but like that's now our thing.
That's sweet.
And it was the same thing with a best friend of mine. I was like, you know, when you're doing laundry, she was like, that used to be the only time she would get to herself. And so now I was like, have your daughter do it with you, right? Because she's like, I have no time to even do laundry anymore. So then just sit and like slow it down. If you show them, like we talk a lot about modeling, if you're purposeful about this and you just want to zone out, maybe it's time to connect with them and just have conversations, talk, you know, give them that attention, but just make that the fun experience. You're teaching them slowly. If it doesn't work, try a different activity, because laundry might not be the thing that they connect to, but think of something that you have to do in the day and how you can help bring them a part of it.
It's a great thing to do. I mean, and sometimes something silly helps them to do it with you. Yeah. And then it's not this, they're not countering each other where it's like, well, I have to get this done so that I can be with the kids. It's, we can do those things together. Like I made to help my son help me with folding. I would just make a silly noise for each fold. Yeah. And now when he's folding, he makes this little whoop, whoop, whoop noise for each part. And now he's happy to help because it's sort of silly. And that's all it took. Yeah. It doesn't often take that much to get, particularly little ones. Older ones, it probably takes quite a lot more to help them get their help with the laundry. But with younger ones, it's pretty easy if you are just a little bit playful.
And you're also teaching them a life skill. Yeah. Giving them some independence.
Exactly. Which is really good.
No, but and you mentioned about when you first moved here, it did feel more challenging to try to get that because the list of must-dos were there. And I think that's also important to know that you're probably not going to get to like trying to find time for yourself and carving out me time in the beginning. Yeah. Even without a child, like that was not something that I could do because it's just the reality of I don't understand the language. And so things are going to take much longer for me. But as you settle into the routines, I think that's where you realize, okay, now I can start thinking about that. Yeah. I know we've talked about like, we've also tried to plan like having date night. Yeah. The two of us, and you're like, well, let's just go to the calendar and see when I can plan ahead.
Let me look 3 months ahead and find a free Friday. Yeah, no, it takes a while. And I think it's important what you said about allowing, it's okay if it takes a minute. Yeah. Because when we're first coming in, there's a lot that we are trying to figure out, and you won't probably feel like you're giving yourself as much as you were before, but it changes. It changes, and then you start. And the other thing that I think doesn't happen right away but does later down the line is that you begin building out what your village looks like, and that also helps you to then be able to take a little bit more time.
But even before that, like, so you moved and you don't have a village, so you're kind of figuring out how to get the supports, and if you have the means to, you're doing that without in still a quite isolating way, right? You're getting the babysitters, you don't have the friends, you don't have the family like you would at home to just say, hey, you know what, Chanel, let's have dinner next week and I'll leave the kids with my mom. So for you, it's more effort because you have to plan. What does that look like? Like planning to go out and get some time for yourself if you did want to have dinner alone.
That's it. I mean, it does take a little more planning. I mean, there are lots of babysitters. In fact, there's Facebook groups about babysitters in the area and that kind of thing. And so if you have the means to do that, it actually is really valuable to get to go and do that if you can. But also there's other things you can do too. Like I've had the experience of sort of swapping with parents where if your child's playing with someone regularly and the mom or the dad, where one parent would stay with both kids at a park, and then you kind of swap, and that way you could run a few errands, because at least here in Germany the stores are all closed on Sunday, so you really just have one day. It's just Saturday that's possible to do any of those errands if you're working during the week. And that can be quite tricky if you're trying to bring kids to every single errand, because when they're little they have stamina to come with you for a couple, but maybe not if you have to go to 5 places, that they will run out of steam. So then you can get a bunch of things done quickly, and then also maybe take a little extra time just to do something for yourself. But that's kind of nice, and then you can help the other set of parents out in the same way. That's kind of a nice thing to do.
Yeah, and I think it's important that the goal should always try to reestablish those type of connections, right? Because when you're back home, you do have the friends, you do have the family. I know growing up for me, my best friend and our parents were also best friends. So even if you didn't live nearby the grandparents, you still had that community where you could just go and leave the kids with your friend, or the kids want to have a play date or a sleepover. So you're like, great, now I have kids free time and I can actually do something. But when you move to a new place, that doesn't happen as easily. And I think too is when I look back at my childhood as a child whose parents had this experience growing back, one thing that I do notice is that, or the contrast is that, like my mom, for instance, out of necessity, she had to build a village right away, right? She didn't have the means to hire babysitters, not even for self-care, but because she had to work. She couldn't hire the babysitters or use
other services to help.
Other services. She actually had to find people who were willing to help her, and so through that she built a community much faster than what I'm seeing nowadays, where people are just so isolated and they're so willing to find strangers and not really. I think when you're paying for a stranger, there's more trust there. But when it's like, for instance, going to your neighbor, there's people are a lot less trusting. And not to say that it's just more unsafe now, because I think there's always been an element of, the world might not be that safe. I think when it's out of necessity and survival, those things almost are not as important. But it brings you to a place that brings safety and brings that community and brings that village. Whereas when you're leading by fear and not wanting to take that risk and not wanting to be vulnerable, that's when you find yourself more isolated and more lonely, and having this place of, I can't do anything because I don't have anyone around me.
Yeah, for sure. And sometimes it takes moving through that to then get to the other side, where you take a look at where things are. Like, I've actually set a bunch of things up, but I don't go do things for myself, or I don't have my friend group yet. And then sometimes that's incentive to start building. But the thing is that there's all sorts of relationships that you can build in small moments all the time. I mean, I know even in my building, I'm friends with many of our neighbors. We go to dinner, we hang out, we do things. And if we needed something I'll give an example. We have a neighbor, and my husband, one day I was out to dinner, and it's the first time it's actually ever happened. He left his keys and couldn't get into the house, and he had both kids. So our neighbors were like, "Oh, don't worry, come hang out here, watch a movie. The kids can play with, they had a fish tank and they could watch and feed the fish and hang out until I could get back." Mm-hmm. And that was a neighbor, and sometimes we need to allow those relationships to form, and we do build trust over time. It takes a little while, but with the kids, because we can be worried about where our kids are or who they're with, but they're playing with certain people anyway. And so if they're playing with certain people anyway, they're making some friends at school, even just finding out who a couple of those parents are and meeting at the playground regularly, that then builds something that you can rely on. Because when you're far away from the things you're used to relying on, we have to build it with people we don't know as well at first, right? Everyone's a stranger first.
Exactly.
They're not a stranger forever. Yeah. And I've really found it to be super wonderful to have these other relationships that I feel like I could call if something happened. Like if I couldn't get back, there's many people now who could grab my kids for an hour or so while I get here. And it's just like knowing you have backup, even if you don't need it all the time. It makes a big difference when to feel safe and comfortable in the place where you are, and to know that if you really needed a minute, you could take it.
Yeah. And I think that's the key as well. And I just touching on, you mentioned like having those play dates at the playground. We've had this in a previous episode where we talked about how here, especially in Germany, people meet outside. They don't really come into your home. And so I think there's a sense of connection that can happen in someone's home that doesn't quite happen on the playground setting. And so if you're coming from somewhere where it's normal to be the host and everybody comes over and the play dates happen in the home, if you lead by that and you start to bring people in, I think that's another way that you can you're showing them like what the relationship can be like, because over time they might start inviting you over and you start to build that trust and that connection in that way, because also you don't want your kids to go to a home that you've never seen, right?
Well, it's funny because sometimes we go to a new country and we're trying so hard to understand the new cultural rules, and we're doing things in ways that align with the culture where we're going. And also there can be some really wonderful things from your culture that you continue to do, to casually have people over because you're the American couple that has people over to their house more often, and that's okay too. I think
and
we forget that.
Safe with you, and if you initiate like, hey, let me grab the kids for a few hours, you guys take some time, you know what, it's gonna come in return. They're gonna offer to do the same thing for you, and then you can start not feeling as if you're putting someone out of their way asking for the request. It feels easier as well.
Exactly, it helps.
There's definitely ways.
Yeah, for sure. And if you're not there yet, if you don't have those relationships yet, even within your own relationship, you can work to balance things to get some time for yourself too.
Take turns.
We had a time period where like every Sunday we would alternate who did the morning.
Yeah.
And we actually don't need to do it anymore because the kids are bigger. But when they're quite little and it's more intense, that really helps. It helps to know that there's one weekend day that you can sleep in, and if you want to read, if you want to do yoga, if you want to hang out, you just can. And you can even just do that with your parenting partner too, before you've found your village, your people, your kids' friends. There's always a way.
I was just thinking back to you saying you wake up in the mornings earlier to like have that start. I do the opposite. I actually wake up earlier to do work so that I can have some time in the day that I just don't have to think about it. If I get it out of the way before I'm disturbed by my not so young child, then I feel like I have more time for us and also a little bit more time for myself. If I can prioritize us and then that's fulfilled, then I feel like I have more time for myself later on.
Yeah. That's it. You have to find your own rhythm and what works for you. And everybody's going to be a little bit different in that. But there's always a way even if we're working a lot and we don't have other resources to get babysitters or other support, there's always a way to maximize some of the time that you do have, or to change it just a tiny little bit so you feel like you're getting more of what you need.
Yeah, I think find little pockets of time to reflect and really be honest with yourself. Like, what is it that you need to feel like you've had a reset?
Yeah.
Right? So I know that we said, it doesn't have to be big, but maybe for you it does need to be big. So if you're able to find some time to think about what is it that I need to feel like myself for the day, to feel prepared to show up with as my best self, take those pocket windows, take those small walks, and just start thinking about yourself, making more time to check in with you. I know I have my little rituals on my Fridays where I just, after the gym, I will just take some time to do my hair. And while I'm doing my hair, I am face to face with the mirror, like having conversations with myself. What do I need to do? What do I want? How can I make this week better? Or how can I set myself up for next week? And so I plan. So maybe next week I actually do want to like just read a book before I go to bed. Can I possibly find some time to read before bed? And the next week it changes. And I feel fulfilled in that moment, like because I've done this bigger thing rather than just like taking a deep breath or having a quick little meditation. I'm intentionally doing something that's going to make me feel better and more accomplished.
Yeah. And that's where I think that idea that we're going a little bit slowly or reflecting a little bit more or using some of those small moments for that then allows you to see, oh, you know what I actually need is this other thing, or maybe I need actual rest, maybe I need exercise, maybe I need to connect with someone. We don't, it's not always the same.
Yeah.
And then when we have a little bit of time to reflect and have a moment to just think about ourselves instead of everybody else just for a little bit, we can see what that might be and meet the need easier.
Yeah, plan for it.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think I'm just kind of summarizing, it doesn't have to happen right away.
Yeah.
So don't feel like you're doing something wrong because you're trying to establish your life. You've just moved and things feel chaotic. Give that some time and just know that you're going to be intentional about this later on.
Yeah, and then it builds over time, and small things add up. Even just small windows to begin thinking about what it is that you might need is a great first step. And thinking about the different types of rest. What is it? Is it really that I need to sleep? Is it that I need something else for myself? So that you can help to do that. And we've talked a lot about having conversations with our partners too, having some of those,
Definitely.
and sharing some of it so you can help each other because the other person might be feeling the same way.
And if you're like a single parent, if you can tag team with another single parent, it's almost the same effect. Similar, not exactly, but you can really benefit from that mutual shared experience.
Yeah, and that village builds slowly, but it builds, and that helps you to build capacity too. Yeah.
Right. But as always, if you have any other experiences that you can share, please feel free to comment below and let us know what helped you when you first moved to a new city. What are some of the things you wish you knew before? What is the thing that you wish you didn't do? But yeah, we definitely want to hear. It's a community, guys. As always, follow us on all our social media. Please share with your parenting friends who might benefit, and don't forget to like and subscribe.
We'll see you soon.